Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over some possibly unpleasant reasons why a man is not choosing you. I'm going to make the opposite version as well. I think that this is helpful as information. I don't know how I'm going to title this, but probably something like harsh reasons or brutal reasons or something that is very obvious that this is not going to be something that may be pleasant for everybody to watch just because if you're not ready for it, don't click it, right? I hope that's how it works. But that's my perspective, as I want to be as honest and forthcoming as possible, as I always am. And I also don't want to withhold information that I feel is beneficial to some people. As a therapist, I see a lot of different lives and lifestyles, and I notice patterns. It's something that I personally cannot help but draw conclusions, whether that be wrong or right. And so today I wanted to share some of those connections and patterns that I see and conclusions I've drawn from it based on the many lives I've seen and how they played out from what I've seen. And the first one I think is common, and it's tricky because some part of it is out of anyone's control. You might not be the type of person that he envisions his future with, whether it's something you've done or whether it's something you did not do. So an example that you cannot control is, let's say you guys come from different cultures. Maybe he's from the north, you're from the south. Different cultures, sometimes incredibly different cultures, right? And some people, that's a barrier for them. It really depends. Whereas it could be you guys are from different countries. That could be another barrier. But then for another couple, it might not be. But he might envision a future with somebody who he feels is compatible from that perspective. Now, it is more common where it's something you can control, which I feel is helpful, but also a lot of people don't want to hear it. A lot of times men might say in my practice or things I've seen where he's like, I'm okay with being with her for a certain amount of time because I do care about her, but I feel that she's a negative person, or I feel like she blames me a lot. I feel like she doesn't take accountability, and that's not the person that I really envision a future with. I don't see her as a person that's going to be my wife. I don't see her as a person that I want to have kids with. And a lot of people don't like to hear that some people do this, but this is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean this person is using another individual. It just means that as the relationship progressed, they realize, okay, I do care about this person and I feel like I want to invest some time in it. And sometimes they may even say it's like a lesson or something for me to learn. But I don't see this as a person that I want a future with, especially if things do not change, right? That's usually how some people word this. And I think that's reasonable. The next one is he doesn't agree with your decisions that you made in the past, and it affects his perspective of your future together. This is something a lot of people don't like to hear, but if you're a person who's, had a fair share of people you connected with for whatever reason, men and women both take that into account with who they want to see their future with. If you've spent a lot of time in your early life, teenage years, 20s, etc., in a lot of short-term fling type relationships, some people don't want to be in a relationship with someone like that simply because they can perceive that as they can see it as like baggage. You've been experienced with a lot of different people. You've seen a lot of things, and it makes them almost feel like they have to work around all of these things. Maybe some of these relationships were abusive. Maybe you just picked up a lot of different things, and especially because the relationships did not last, likely a lot of this baggage is negative. It's not going to add to the relationship. So a lot of men, they do make decisions about whether you're going to be his wife or not based on your history. And a lot of people do not like this truth, but it is the truth. And I don't really know if that's ever going to change. Not every man is like this, but I think both men and women are like this. I think this is very valid. I myself have a very similar perspective. I'd rather somebody who I felt was, just my personal opinion. And this part, of course, is much more opinionated, but to me, if somebody is always with a lot of different people, I feel like that's not a mentally sound person. And to me, I like to be happy. I like to have a more logical, streamlined life. And I don't really want all those variables added to my life. And so I would personally not want to be with someone who has such a capacity of making those types of decisions. I understand people change, but that's just my opinion. And I think a lot of people agree. And some men also feel that way. And so that could be a reason why he may not choose this particular person for that reason. Not every man is like that. The next one is he's just not ready for a relationship genuinely. So this doesn't mean he's not necessarily choosing you. It just means he's not ready for a relationship. But it still feels like he's not choosing you because he's not. He doesn't want anyone. And this is a very genuine reason. He might be like this for the rest of his life. Like some people are like this. My dad, he hasn't been in a relationship in many, many, many years, and he avoids them kind of like the plague. That's his right. But he's not ready, and he's never going to be. I know that about him, and I that's fine. And some men are like that. They're not ready for a relationship. They're never going to be. And that's just the way it is. And sometimes it can be because they had a marriage that didn't pan out. That's like my dad. After his marriage, he just felt like he already didn't want it that much, and he tried his best and it didn't work, and he realized that he has to give up a lot of stuff to be in a relationship, or he has to find someone really, really specific, and he has other things to do. He's got a business he's got to run. Like, he's got things. And some men are like that. The next one is he feels disrespected by you. To be honest, this one is I feel like it's really obvious, but it's so common. I guess people don't know this. If he feels disrespected by you continuously, you say things like using his government name when you guys are fighting, you are, I don't know, mocking him, or you try and tell him like all the things he needs to fix. This is, in my opinion, obvious disrespect, but some men don't know that. And they continuously feel that way, and they don't realize why they're feeling disrespected, and they decide after accumulation of this disrespect that he no longer wants a relationship, or he doesn't want to have a future with you. And it's very valid. It is a very valid reason. The next one is he feels misunderstood. It's similar to disrespect, but sometimes people feel misunderstood for plenty of different reasons. You guys just might be very different people. And for that, he may feel misunderstood, and that's not something you can control, but it's also not something he can control. He can't just pretend to feel understood when he doesn't feel understood. And so if this is a situation you're in, it's important to communicate. If you want to understand him, tell him that. Ask him, where does he feel misunderstood? What can you do as a person and a person that loves him to help him feel understood? A lot of men, actually, I've noticed, really crave being understood. I think a lot of people do, but I think men in particular do feel very misunderstood. And it's hard because it's not just from the way society's lens is. It's also that they feel they cannot communicate or show emotions. They feel that they'll always be invalidated, a plethora of other things. A lot of times they're made fun of for that. They're shut down. They are, the way a lot of men are naturally, I feel like they're not allowed to be that way. And so they already have this natural perspective of being misunderstood because their natural disposition is apparently not allowed for society reasons or whatever it is. I'm not a man, can't speak to it, but I noticed that. And the next one is he feels like no matter how hard he tries, it's never enough. I see more couples than individuals, and unfortunately, this is one of the most common reasons that men admit that maybe that's the reason he wanted a divorce. He feels like, okay, she wants the cups in the dishwasher. This is just the first example I thought about, but some men, what they do is like if they use a cup for their coffee or water in the morning, they put it on the counter because they know after work they're going to use that same cup. Ladies are not like that. I'm not like that. I know it's a waste, but I like to put that cup in the dishwasher and then use another one if I even use it. I have the same water bottle that I use, and then I just wash that one. But some men do it that way, and sometimes it's even more than just a cup. It might be like a fork. This one bugs me. He might use a fork, and then he's going to use that for dinner. But like some men are like that. No judgment, absolutely at all. And let's say his wife says, I don't like that he does that. And he's like, okay, that's the way I operate, but I'm going to do that for my wife and my family so that I make my wife happy, so that we're not fighting. And, a lot of men do that. They sacrifice for their loved ones. I think that's natural. And so he puts his fork away. He's a good husband, whatever it is. And now she has a new thing. And the new thing is maybe she wants him to put his paint away and not leave it around the garage, even though he has a painting project and he's kind of in between it. Maybe he's taking a long time to do it because it's just a fun thing for him. And she's like, put it on the shelf. Don't leave it on the floor of the garage. And maybe that's a new one. And he does that. And so the list kind of keeps growing. And he feels like no matter how hard he tries, he cannot please his wife. And so in his mind, he thinks, okay, if I can't make her happy, why am I here? And this is a very legitimate reason. And ladies, if this is something that your significant other does, they put the fork or they put the cup or whatever it is, my significant other does this thing that I don't like, but I respect him. Like the orange juice or the milk, he drinks right out of the carton, which that's his way. That's okay. Or sometimes if I make him like he likes wings, right? Chicken wings. And I make a lot of them for him. And what he does is like, I would prefer if I could serve it just like on a little plate and give it. He just wants me to put on a big plate. He puts that on the counter. He pulls out the trash can, turns the TV on, and eats the chicken wings right on top of the trash can and just eats it and then throws it. Like he's a very streamlined man. And I think a lot of men are like that. I could not be comfortable doing that, but I don't mind him doing that because I know that that's the way he operates. Actually, it's very intelligent. The TV's on, he's watching football, he can just eat the wings and throw it in the trash can. No concern, no worries. And so I think that respecting the way men are, or your man, or whoever he is, however he is, you don't want to pick on every little thing because it's going to drive him away. That was kind of my point about that. But in general, I hope this video was helpful to somebody. It's just my thoughts. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.